Many peace negotiations have been conducted between Israelis and Palestinians. All of them have failed. Is there any reason to believe President Trump's deal of the century will succeed when all others have failed? For the answer, stay tuned for today's edition of End of the Age. Well, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump's deal of the century is creating waves around the world. And everybody is wondering, why should this plan succeed when all others have failed? That's one of the things we're going to talk about today. Because as you know, there is coming a peace deal between Palestinians and Israelis. It's prophesied in the Bible, and the prophecies never fail. The only question is this the time, and is this the plan? That's what we're going to talk about for a while today. Now, before we actually go there, however, I want to bring back to you our wonderful tour that will be taking place May the 1st through May the 16th. Like I've told you before, in my opinion, this is the best tour that we do, because it deals with so many things that we need to know for right now and the immediate future. Of course, in Israel, no place like it in the world. You're going to go to the place where Jesus will return to earth. I mean, we are told exactly when he comes back where he will put his feet. You're going to put your feet there. There's no feeling like it in the whole world. That's actually going to be your experience. And then beyond that, we'll go down to the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus spent the night in prayer, saying, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. And we'll be talking about what that means. What's he mean, the cup? Is he struggling to face death? What is he wrestling with? I mean, there are many other people that have died valiantly without a whimper for some cause that they believe in, and yet it seemed like he was having such a struggle. Well, we'll tell you what that's really all about on this tour. Now, going beyond that, we're going to walk down through the Kidron Valley where the Battle of Armageddon will culminate. And then it's one thing after another, going up to the Temple Mount. And we will stand where Israel's third temple is getting ready to be built. I'll quote to you the prophecy that explicitly states a temple is soon to be built there. You're going to stand right there where it's getting ready to happen, a dramatic fulfillment. And by the way, that temple will be built during the first 3.5 years of the final 7 years. And then we'll go to the Temple Institute. You're going to see all the furniture. It's ready now for the temple to be built. You'll see the utensils. You'll even get to take a look at the architectural drawings that are now prepared for the third temple, plus, believe it or not, the Ark of the Covenant. So it's going to be an incredible trip. We'll then go to where Jesus spent 3 days and 3 nights in the tomb. You will step inside that tomb yourself. Well, can you tell? It's exhilarating. You say, wow, I don't know whether I could take all that in or not. Well, that's only part of the story. We're then going up north. We're going to baptize in the Jordan River. We're going to the hill of Megiddo that overlooks the plain of Megiddo, where the Battle of Armageddon will actually begin. You're going to walk all the way through that. You'll see it for yourself. You'll actually live prophecy in advance. Then when we finally leave Israel after 11 days, we're going to Europe. And there you're going to visit the site where the Holy Roman Empire was reborn. You say, why do I care about that? because the Bible teaches the Antichrist and the false prophet will both come out of the Holy Roman Empire in a few weeks or years from right now. So you're going to actually go there, understand all about the Holy Roman Empire. We'll take you through the prophecy so you can know for sure how we know that the Antichrist and the false prophet will both come out of the Holy Roman Empire. And then you're going to be able to see the Hall of the Kaisers. And I don't even think I've told you about this yet, but we're going to go down the Rhine River in a beautiful Rhine River cruise, and on and on. Well, that's all I can tell you right now. But I just wanted to bring you up to date, because if you're planning on going to Israel, in my opinion, there is no better trip than the one that we will be leaving on very shortly now, May 1st through May the 16th. I'm already getting excited. I'm already getting anxious. Plus, oh, by the way, you're going to go to the capital of the European Union. You're actually going to see the headquarters of the European Union. You will see the place where people must go to negotiate to become a member of the European Union, and then on and on and on. It's going to be quite an incredible trip. If you can go, I highly recommend you do it right now, this spring. The weather's going to be perfect. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be a great time to go. If you'd like to go, if you're interested in at least learning about it, call 1-800-Endtime. Ask to speak to someone about the tour. That's 1-800-363-8463.
About our trip, it was a wonderful experience. We totally enjoyed the time spent with other believers, worshiping and experiencing the places where Christ walked. One of our favorites was being on Mount Moriah, where the Holy of Holies are, the Dome of the Spirit. And the teachings that Brother Baxter did was so enlightening. It was so much to take in. It will take us another month or two to really grasp the full extent of the knowledge we received on this trip. Our tour guide in Israel was fantastic. He was very knowledgeable. I think God chose him just for us. Thanks, Jana. Our lives will never be the same. We will try to do this tour again. Mike and Julie L., Cayman Islands.
Join us May 1st through May 16th, 2020, for a trip to the wonderful land of Israel and the Holy Roman Empire reborn.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Endtime Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to this program for very long, you know that I have been talking about a peace agreement between Palestinians and Israelis for a long, long time. Now, don't despair. I talked about the fall of the Berlin Wall for 21 years. Many people laughed me to scorn, and yet it happened. I had stated the wall would come down, the two Germanys would be reunited, and that would be the event that would trigger the new world order. Well, it happened just like I saw from the scriptures. The wall did come down, the two Germanys were united, and within 20 days of the fall of the Berlin Wall, President Bush Sr., Mikhail Gorbachev, and Pope John Paul II met together. They met together, and I'm talking about 20 days after the wall came down, they came out of those meetings announcing the birth of the New World Order. You talk about my phone ringing off the hook. I had published a book 3 years before that stating that this was going to happen. Everybody wanted to know, where is this in the Bible? What does this mean? What's going to happen next? Well, we're coming up against an event now much more impacting than the fall of the Berlin Wall. We're coming up on the event that is going to trigger the final 7 years to the physical second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth. The Bible says, every eye shall behold him. We're talking about this peace agreement. Now, President Trump made the statement before he was ever elected that his number one goal as president would be to negotiate a deal between Palestinians and Israelis. Well, now then, he has put that deal together. He named it the deal of the century. So now we're all waiting. He just released it just on January the 28th. So just about a week ago, he released the deal. Now everybody's reading all about it. It's 181 pages. If you'd like to read the whole thing, you can go to whitehouse.gov, and there you can read all of the text of President Trump's peace plan. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if this peace plan ends up being accepted by Palestinians and Israelis, you and I will enter that day, the final 7 years, to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to this earth. Now you understand better why I can't quit talking about it. It's going to be the greatest prophetic fulfillment in 2,000 years. That's what we're facing right now. I want to get into this plan a little deeper because I'm sure your head is swimming by now. You've heard so much about it. You've read so much about it. But today I thought we would try to boil it down to its essence. First of all, what happens after the Palestinians reject the peace plan, if they do? Now, they've already said they reject it, but not everybody takes their words at face value. So everybody's asking, what happens if they reject it? Well, let's go through about 9 or 10 things that will happen according to the Trump peace plan that will happen if the Palestinians reject it. Number one, Israel would get to annex all Jewish communities presently established in Judea, Samaria. Now, when we refer to Judea, Samaria, we're referring to the West Bank. The West Bank is the territory that was conquered by Israel during the 1967 Six-Day War. So Israel would get to absorb, annex this entire area. Number two, approximately 30% of Judea and Samaria formerly would be integrated into Israel, reunifying those lands. That's the second thing that would happen. And we're talking about if the Palestinians reject. 3, the Arabs in Judea and Samaria who denominate themselves, call themselves Palestinians, would get their own independent country in what is left of Judea and Samaria after Israel annexes its 30%. 4th, Hamas would have to be disarmed. 5, the new country denominated as Palestine would have to be demilitarized. 6, Jerusalem would remain united. The city would remain Israel's capital, even as the Arabs of Palestine could deem it as their capital too, with a U.S. embassy to be built for them in a section of the city populated primarily by Arabs. 7, no new Jewish building in Judea and Samaria would be permitted for the next 4 years in areas designated for Palestinians. 8, Palestine would be barred from having a military and would be protected instead by Israel, with Palestine paying for the protection. 9, a tunnel will be constructed to connect the Judea and Samaria region of Palestine with its Gaza region. 10, other things too, dealing primarily with which countries pay for what. So that's an overview of what will happen if the Palestinians reject this or if they accept it. So I want to make sure we go through this so we can really understand. Now, one may wonder whether the deal of the century has been formulated to induce the Palestinian leadership to manifest their intransigence, thereby justifying Israel moving ahead with annexation. So Israel's going to get all of this if the Palestinians reject it. And so this author is asking, well, you begin to wonder if maybe they didn't design the whole deal of the century to induce the Palestinians to reject it so they could get all of these things. Now, under that premise, once the Palestinian leadership from Gaza to Ramallah, now Gaza's down in the southern part of Israel, Ramallah's up about 20 miles north of Jerusalem, from Gaza to Ramallah rejects the Trump plan outright. There might remain no further obstacle with the Trump White House to reunify the Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria for once and for all. And that massive reunification of Judea and Samaria with the Israeli heartland will be a very big deal indeed. The deal of the century. Okay, now let's absorb all this. Always before, everything has been reject, reject, reject. We're talking about some of Israel's leaders have given away the farm, and still the Palestinians said no. Back in the days of Ehud Olmert, he promised to give away just about everything that Israel conquered during the 67 war. And yet, Mahmoud Abbas walked away. Earlier, 2000, Ehud Barak and Yasser Arafat met at Camp David under the leadership of President Bill Clinton. And it was there that Ehud Barak almost agreed to give everything back, including the Temple Mount itself. And still, Yasser Arafat rejected. The big question is why? And this is critical for us to know to understand the difference between Trump's deal of the century and all other peace plans that have gone before it. And there's a big difference. In order to understand the big difference, we need to understand one thing. As President Trump has devised his deal of the century, he didn't just say, if you reject, we go back to where we were before we started. He said, if you reject, the Israelis already get all the things being offered to them, but you don't get everything that's offered to you in this deal. So they get everything that they negotiated for, and you get nothing. Whoa. Now, this is a big deal. One article said the Palestinian veto has been denied. Let's look at it. It is slowly becoming clear just how revolutionary is U.S. President Donald Trump's attempt to change the paradigm for dealing with the Palestinian issue, and how much Israel's negotiating stance has improved as well. Are you getting this? Israel's negotiating stance has dramatically improved, and this deal is revolutionary. The article goes on to say the plan denies the Palestinians their main political asset. I wonder what that is. The right to veto. A right which has for decades put them at the center of the world political and moral stage. So always before, the rule was, if both parties don't agree, we don't have a deal. However, we have suddenly changed, and we're going back to a whole different paradigm. This deal does not say if both parties don't agree, there's no deal. This says there's going to be a deal, whether the parties agree or not. So what is this saying to us? This is saying to us that the Palestinians are going to have to put up or shut up this time. Now, let's slow down and think about it. So if the Palestinians say no, the U.S. is still already told Israel that the settlements out in Judea, Samaria, out in the area of the West Bank, are not illegal. Now, the international community, led by the United Nations, they have been saying for years that the settlements are illegal. However, they've not been able to prove that, because the area where the settlements are, Judea, Samaria, this area originally was under the British mandate. Then when the 48 War of Independence happened, Jordan came in and took that land illegally, and they then stayed there for the next 19 years until the 1967 war. So during the 1967 war, Israel drove them back across the Jordan River, back to their home where they came from. So now this area has been controlled by two entities since World War I, by the British Empire under the British mandate, and then by Jordan. But when Israel took the territory, everybody started screaming, it's illegal. You're not supposed to be able to take that territory. But who did they occupy it from? Well, they occupied it from Jordan, that had illegally occupied it 19 years before. And then, before that, it belonged to the British Empire, and they wanted to pull out. So on May the 14th of 1948, they said, we're leaving, we're tired of messing with all this conflict, so we are going. That left this land, originally addressed by the Balfour Declaration in 1917, when the government of Great Britain said, His Majesty's government looks with favor upon the forming of a Jewish state in the area of Palestine or Judea, Samaria. Now, don't forget, this area was not originally called Palestine. It was called Israel until the Roman government in 70 AD destroyed Jerusalem and passed a law against Jews living in Jerusalem and tried to drive them totally out. Well, when that happened, the Roman government changed the name of this territory from Israel to Palestine. But the word Palestine is the same word as the word Philistine. So what we really have here, the Romans were spiting the Jews. They hated the Jews. So they drove them out, and they gave their land the name of their worst enemy. The Philistines were always Israel's number one enemy. So it stayed Palestine from 70 AD all the way up until the birth of Israel in 1948. The birth of Israel in 1948, David Ben-Gurion announced, our nation will be called Israel. It had been Israel for 1,000 years before the Romans drove the Jews out. Now they're all back. Now they've taken the name of Israel again. And Judea, Samaria, read through your Bible. You'll read about Judea, Samaria everywhere in the scriptures. And yet the United Nations says to Israel, no, this is not your land. You're illegitimate here. Well, the government of Donald Trump, they assigned scholars to research all this land to see if, in fact, Israel's settlements there were illegal. When they got finished with a one-year study, they said to President Trump, no, absolutely, Let's face it, Jericho was the first city that the Israelis took when they entered the Promised Land under Joshua. What was that? 3,500 years ago. So when this realization came that there was no legal basis for these settlements in the West Bank, in the area of Judea, Samaria, to be considered illegal, President Trump said, no, you're not there illegally, in spite of the fact that the United Nations had passed a resolution stating that Israel's presence there was a flagrant violation of international law. So that's where we are today. Now, if, in fact, the Palestinians don't accept Trump's agreement, then the Jews, Israel, is going to be able to go ahead and take all these places, and they will permanently annex them. As a matter of fact, they're planning on annexing them within the next 2 or 3 or 4 months. So the Palestinians have about 3 or 4 months to come to the table. That's the reason the Palestinians are panicking, and they now have already gone to the United Nations asking the UN to pass a resolution against Trump's deal of the century. But they can't get it through the United Nations Security Council because the United States of America has veto power there. So as you can see, this is totally different than all other deals put on the table. Always before, if the Palestinians would not agree, then nothing was agreed to. Not this way this time. This time the Palestinians refuse to negotiate. Now, if they go to negotiate, they can say, well, we don't like this, we don't like this, we'd like to change this, and perhaps they can change some of the things. But if they flat out refuse, then by the time Israel actually annexes the settlements and the other territories, there will be no reversal. That's the reason this deal is totally different. And we're not going to have to wait years and years to see it. We're going to have to wait weeks and weeks maybe, or maybe 3 or 4 months. That'll be it. It's going to be really, really interesting.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
About our trip, it was a wonderful experience. We totally enjoyed the time spent with other believers, worshiping and experiencing the places where Christ walked. One of our favorites was being on Mount Moriah, where the Holy of Holies are, the Dome of the Spirit. And the teachings that Brother Baxter did was so enlightening. It was so much to take in. It will take us another month or two to really grasp the full extent of the knowledge we received on this trip. Our tour guide in Israel was fantastic. He was very knowledgeable. I think God chose him just for us. Thanks, Jana. Our lives will never be the same. We will try to do this tour again. Mike and Julie L., Cayman Islands.
Join us May 1st through May 16th, 2020, for a trip to the wonderful land of Israel and the Holy Roman Empire reborn.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
Well, we are taking your calls in this half of the program. There's so many aspects to this peace deal that I want to give you plenty of times to ask questions and to discuss it. The number to call to be on the air with me, 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. Now, don't forget, if you're interested in going with us on our tour, that number is 1-800-END-TIME. And just ask to speak to someone about the tour, and they'll answer all your questions for you. We have a lot of interest in this wonderful tour that's coming up. It is going to be fabulous. Well, so interesting. Now, even as I speak to you, the Senate is voting on the articles of impeachment. I understand that the first article has been defeated by a score of 48 for and 52 against. They are now voting on the second article of impeachment. I'll try to let you know how that comes out. This is all expected. It was all expected. Of course, in order to impeach the president, they would have to have a 2/3 vote. Of course, they're not even close. They're dividing totally away along party lines. So we're in such an interesting time. President Trump made his annual State of the Union speech before the House last night. And it really was a marvelous speech. If you have not listened to it, I would urge you to go to the internet, pull up his speech, and listen to it in full. The only thing that was sort of marred the speech was that Nancy Pelosi was so upset that she stood up and tore the speech into 3 or 4 times at the conclusion of the speech. Now, people are contending that President Trump snubbed her and wouldn't shake her hand going in. However, she was there, Mike Pence was there, and he didn't shake Mike Pence's hand either. So I do not know whether he handed the speech to both of them and just turned away and didn't see Nancy Pelosi's extended hand or not. I do not know the answer to that. But I will tell you this, that Nancy Pelosi did an unprecedented thing to show her disrespect for the speech, which was moving. President Trump had me close to tears several times. I hate to admit that, but some of his people that he brought in to show what his administration had done was pretty impressive. But you judge for yourself. Just go on to the internet and search for President Trump's State of the Union speech. You can listen to the whole thing, and then you can judge for yourself what you think really happened there. Well, listen, we're going to get right back to it, but one more time, if you need information about our tour, call 1-800-Endtime. Ask to speak to someone about the tour. Let's go now right to the phones. We're going first of all to Alabama. Hello, Evan.
Hey, how are you, Brother Baxter?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, Evan. How are you today?
I'm good.
What's on?
My question for you today is concerning the peace deal. In the Bible, we know it prophesies that the peace deal will be 1 week or 7 years, according to Daniel chapter 9. And I was wondering, this peace deal that Trump and Kushner have brought to the table, since it is not a 7-year peace plan, does that eliminate all chances of this being the peace deal promised in the Bible?
Well, the Bible does not say that it will be called a 7-year plan. It simply says the Antichrist will confirm the covenant with many for 7 years. But it does not say they're going to announce at the outset, oh, this is a 7-year peace plan. So that leaves us hanging a little bit, not knowing for sure if they start a peace plan and then it lasts for 7 years, what will happen. So I cannot answer that conclusively, but we'll be able to pretty quick. Because if they do sign this plan during the first 3.5 years, they have to build Israel's temple. So if they sign a peace deal, whether they call it a 7-year plan or not, and during the first 3.5 years they build a temple and resume animal sacrifices, then we will know we're in the deal, whether they call it a 7-year deal or not.
Okay, do you believe that there's a chance that, because it's a 4-year deal, as I've read in the peace plan, do you believe after the 4 years that they could continue on for another 3 years?
Well, what they're doing, they're saying to the Palestinians, we've had so much conflict, so much terrorism, but if you will do this, this, and this over a 4-year period, then you will get statehood at the end of the 4 years. Now, none of this is set in stone because Jared Kushner said to the Palestinians, if you do not like the terms of this deal, come to the table. Nothing is in concrete. We can discuss it. So the Trump peace plan could become the thing that will open the door to serious negotiations, but may not end up being exactly the deal. It may end up with many changes. We just don't know that for sure.
Okay, well, thank you, Brother Baxter.
Okay, thank you, Evan. And we have all these questions because this is a 181-page document. And if you would like to read the whole thing, you can go to whitehouse.gov, and there you will see the document and you can read through the entire thing. I went through it. I highlighted different things. So it's very interesting. By the way, you may be interested to know that the acquittal process on both counts. Now, on the second account, the vote was 47-53. So apparently, all the Republicans voted for acquittal on the second time around. Mitt Romney, on the first time around, voted for conviction. But apparently, he must have switched, or somebody switched, and the vote was 47-53 to acquit President Trump. So we don't know exactly everything that's going to happen. What I'm doing, and I hope you'll do the same, I'm praying, God, your will be done. Right now, the Democrats are in utter disarray. They have one of their strongest candidates is a confessed socialist, Bernie Sanders, and he is very much a communist. He's a Marxist in his belief systems, been that way for many years, and now that he is the leading candidate among the Democrats. If I were a Democrat, that would be a nightmare, because I don't think anybody believes a socialist, a professed socialist, could in fact beat President Trump. Nevertheless, that's the way things are right now. Now, a lot of things can happen. Many people are thinking that there's going to be a hung convention, and that someone else could be nominated that hasn't even run for the presidency yet. There are even rumors out there that John Kerry wants to jump into the race. There are other rumors that say Hillary Clinton is even thinking about jumping back in. So this promises to be a very amazing and interesting year. However, most of the prognosticators are saying that President is likely going to win an overwhelming victory. And if he does, then it's very likely that they would win back enough seats in the House so that the Republican Party could control both the Senate and the House. And of course, that would give President Trump an open lane to really accomplish many of the things he really wants to accomplish. Now, the list of accomplishments last night that he gave to us in his speech, and by the way, those accomplishments were real and true. I've been following it close enough to know the list of accomplishments he gave last night was absolutely impressive, because he's accomplished in 3 years what most presidents don't even come close to accomplishing in 8 years. However, there's a lot more things on the table that President Trump wants to do. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm praying, God, your will be done. Whatever you want is what I want. I'm praying the same way for Israel. Israel's election will be less than a month from now, March the 2nd. And I want the person that God wants in there, I want him to be elected. Okay, let's get right back to the phones now. And let's go to Edith calling from Louisiana. Hello, Edith.
Hi, Pastor Baxter. First and foremost, thank God that you're here and sharing all this valuable information. I will be very quick. One, CNN just put across the board that Trump was acquitted. Yes, thank you, Lord. My question to you is this. The covenant with many in agreement, would that include the Security Council being part of that covenant with many when it comes to the Trump deal, because so many on that council is for the plan? And I'll take my question off the air.
Okay, thank you very much, Edith. And a lot of people are wondering this right now. Now, sometime next week, this is going to go before the UN Security Council. Abbas is going to be there representing the Palestinians, asking the UN Security Council to condemn the deal of the century. Mr. Danan, the ambassador to the United Nations from Israel, is going to be there. Our ambassador to the United Nations is going to be there. There's going to be a lot of debate go on. Then, when they have a vote, we know how it's going to turn out, because only 15 nations have a vote, and 5 of those nations have absolute veto power. One of them having the veto power is the United States of America. Consequently, we know that we will veto any vote against the deal of the century. So it is going to be defeated there. However, the United States of America would like to have a lot more than a defeat. It would like to have an affirmation. They would like to see the UN Security Council vote in favor of the deal of the century. And I can promise you, the diplomatic activity between now and the day they actually have this discussion and vote before the UN Security Council, it is going to be absolutely fierce. America is going to be talking to the different nations. And then, if in fact the UN Security Council votes it up and approves of it, then you would have the United Nations part of the many that will confirm this agreement. Now, if it doesn't pass, and if we veto it, then Mahmoud Abbas usually takes the case onto the General Assembly, because he has like 56 votes that are Arab votes there that are almost always in his pocket. And so there would be a big vote there. I don't know what's going to happen, in fact. All we know is the Bible says the Antichrist will confirm the covenant with many. There was an article out a couple of days ago stating that 23 nations have already signed on in favor of the deal of the century. 2 nations have come out rejecting the deal of the century. Those 2 nations are Iran and Palestine. The other 23 are from all the different places. 7 of the 23 are from the Middle East, counting Israel. 6 of the 23 are Arab countries, including Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, Egypt. So these are all of the Arab countries that surround the Palestinians. I think the pressure is going to become irresistible on Mahmoud Abbas, that he has to take this seriously, because his most staunch defenders up until now have been for him. Now they're switching sides and they're saying, it's time to get this over with. We cannot face Iran by ourselves. We have to have the United States and Israel on our side. Consequently, it just looks like some weighty decisions are going to be met. All of the things in the prophecies about the peace plan, all of them but one are specifically endorsed in the deal of the century. The one that's not endorsed is not condemned. That would be the building of the Temple Mount on the temple.
Does the book of Revelation frighten you? Do its symbols confuse you? For centuries, the book of Revelation has been misunderstood and misinterpreted. In Revelation, the unveiling of Jesus Christ, Volume 1, Irvin Baxter unlocks the mystery of the book of Revelation with in-depth analysis and commentary like you've never heard before. This 10-part definitive DVD series and 268-page comprehensive commentary book covers the first 12 chapters of the book of Revelation, featuring on-location photography, classic artwork, and symbolic illustrations. You'll walk away with complete understanding and peace about the events happening during the final years on Earth. These comprehensive study tools, available for $299, will deepen your biblical understanding as you dig into the original intent of the book, answering the mysterious prophecies and symbols of the book of Revelation. Don't miss this special offer. Call now, 1-800-ENDTIME, or go to endtime.com to order. Call or go online now to get this comprehensive Bible study.
Let's go to Texas. Gary is calling. Hello, Gary.
Yes, sir, and thanks for taking my call. I'm just wondering if the conditions of the peace treaties that are from the Bible, how many of those are in the Trump's peace treaty? I'm
very glad you asked that, Gary. I just wrote an article on that. It will be in our upcoming Endtime magazine, but I'll go over those with you right now. The peace plan, number one, says there will be a Palestinian state formed in the area of Judea, Samaria. That's number one, that the Bible says. Number two, Jews will be allowed to stay there. I'm talking about Jews that have their homes there now, and there's about 450,000 of them. They'll be allowed to stay there, living amongst the Palestinians. Number three, the Temple Mount will be put under a sharing arrangement, and the deal of the century calls for all people to be able to pray freely on the Temple Mount. That would be the fulfillment of that one. And then Jerusalem is going to be under the control of Israel. The deal of the century calls for that to be only the part of East Jerusalem, which is on the other side of the security wall, which is way out east. That will be the capital of the Palestinians. But that means all of Jerusalem, including Old Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, the Mount of Olives, the Kidron Valley, all those will be, basically all of Jerusalem is going to remain under Israeli control. The only one in the prophecies that the deal of the century does not specifically address is the building of a temple on the Temple Mount. Does not say they will, does not say they won't. All it says is that all people will be able to pray there and to worship God there according to their conscience and the dictates of their religion. Well, the Jewish religion dictates that they're supposed to build their temple on the Temple Mount. So I can see that the Jews would contend we have to be able to build our temple in order for there to be religious freedom here. So that's the only one that is not explicitly in. There's 4 out of 5 explicitly there, but there's one that is not for it or against it. It just simply does not address it one way or the other.
One more question, Irvin. Do you think Kushner and Greenblatt knew what the Old Testament said about the peace treaty, the covenant, before they started writing it up?
I don't think so. I have no indication. I've read almost every article they publish. I have no indication that they have an in-depth understanding of Bible prophecy. And by the way, the prophecy of Daniel's 70 weeks is probably the most difficult prophecy of them all to understand. So I don't see that they had one eye on prophecy, because if they were going to do this, they would not give any of the territory to the Palestinians, because the Bible explicitly says that Israel is not supposed to sign any agreement with the foreigners that are in the land. So if they were taking a strict Bible stance, they would not put this plan out like they have now.
Oh, okay. Well, that clears some matters up. I appreciate your time and everything you're doing, Irvin.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Gary, as well. And by the way, there are strongly religious Jews in Israel that are saying, yes, we want to annex the settlements. And they're pushing for Israel to do it immediately. Yes, we want to do all these things, but no, we do not plan on a Palestinian state. And I mean, they are vehement against it, against the establishment of a Palestinian state in their promised land. But that's what this agreement is called for, if in fact it is signed. All right, let's go to our next person now. Let's go to Derek calling from Ohio. Hello, Derek.
Hey, Brother Irvin, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Very quickly, I know that Paul Warburg is the founder of the Federal Reserve, the Brookings Institute, and also the Council of Foreign Relations. Yes. I was trying to get a clear, concise understanding. What's the difference between the Brookings Institute and the Council of Foreign Relations? And also, very quickly, my second question would be, I know that you had preached against the wall coming down, dividing East and West Germany, but what actually happened that gave you that revelation that you preached it so, before you actually put it in the magazine, and then it turns out that it was one of the trumpets that that we're now experiencing. And now let's listen to your question.
The fall of the Berlin Wall, Derek, actually is not one of the trumpets. That happened when the Berlin Wall came down. The two Germanys were reunited. That's all found in Revelation chapter 13. When you talk about a seven-headed, 10-horned beast. And if you understand what each of those heads are, it says one of the heads was wounded to death. Then the deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. We actually have a series on the fall of the Berlin Wall. If you want to go in depth with that, you can call and order that DVD series. Simply call 1-800-Endtime. And we go into great detail. You got to really spend some hours on that to get the full implication of it all. But anyway, that's the way I understood. Now, as far as the Brookings Institute, it is more of a think tank, whereas the Council on Foreign Relations specializes in foreign policy and also tries to groom up-and-coming young people that they think could become politicians. For instance, Bill Clinton, they looked at him when he was still in high school, and they tabbed him to go to Oxford, there to the special college in Oxford, and he was there along with some other politicians. So they have a path that they sort of put people through. Now, they may pick 50 and only end up with 2 or 3 that end up coming out like they want them to, but the Council on Foreign Relations concentrates on feeding new talent into the political system, but talent that believes like they wanted them to believe and will do what they want them to do. Whereas the Brookings Institute writes a lot of policy. They write some of the speeches for the president. So that's the difference between the two entities. Okay, let's go now to Arthur calling from Missouri. Hello, Arthur.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. You have talked about the sixth trumpet that could happen at any time. That you say this is probably going to be World War III?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there an Old Testament parallel to this? I was thinking Zechariah 12 might be an Old Testament reference to this sixth trumpet.
Well, I don't think so, Arthur, because it's under Zechariah 12. It talks about the second coming of Jesus. It states during that time that Jerusalem will be a troublesome stone, and all people who bother with Jerusalem will be ground to powder. And then it goes on to say that in that 12th chapter, it says, and they will look upon him whom they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as a father mourneth for his only son. And they will actually behold his wounds whom they have pierced. So that records the second coming. So unless I'm missing something, I don't see the sixth trumpet in the 12th chapter of Zechariah.
Okay, thank you. All right, you have a great.
Okay, you're most welcome. Let's go now. Let's go to Abel calling from New Jersey. Hello, Abel.
Hey, how you doing? God bless you and everybody, Dave and the whole crew. I think you already kind of answered it a couple questions ago. I was going to ask you about the UN, United Nations Security Council. They're scheduled for tomorrow. Jared is scheduled for tomorrow, and then Abbas for next week. And I just wanted you to chime in on that, and also how I'm curious. So you know how people feel that is the Antichrist and the whole mess is going to come from the Muslim countries. They say they connect Javan with Iran, which is Greece, and I don't know if you know about that. Can you chime in on that? Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. God bless.
Thank you, Abel. Well, I definitely do not believe the Antichrist is coming from a Muslim country. I believe the Antichrist is coming from Europe. I'm sure of it, because the Bible clearly states there will be a 10-nation union out of Europe, and then another king will come up among the 10, uprooting 3 of them. He's the one that becomes great, and he's the one that will perpetrate the great tribulation. You can read about all that in Daniel chapter number 7. There it talks about this 10-nation union. And then in Daniel 2, it also talks about the 10-nation union and describes it as the feet and toes of iron mingled with clay. The 10 toes in particular stand for the same thing as the 10 horns in Daniel chapter 7, verse 7 and 8. And it says in chapter 2, verse 44, and in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom that will never pass away and will never be destroyed. Now those toes are of iron mingled with clay. Iron was the symbol of the Roman Empire. Iron mingled with clay was a symbol of the Holy Roman Empire. And that's the reason I'm so sure that the Antichrist will come out of the Holy Roman Empire reborn. So that's the way I see all those prophecies unfolding in front of us. Okay, thank you very much, Abel. Let's go right now to Whitney calling from New York. Hello, Whitney.
Hi, yes, good evening. Quick question. The book Daniel, chapter 11. I was just wondering about, I always looked at capital G for God, that's the big guy, right? And lowercase g is obviously idols or whatever. But later on, chapter 11, 36, later on in 38, it speaks of the God of forces, but that's with its capital G. I just wondered if there's a difference between one G and the other.
Well, you can't always go by that because the people that supply these capitalizations, they're the publishers. It's just like It's just like when you have a red letter Bible. Most of the places they did the words of Jesus correctly, but there's at least one place that I know for sure was not, the red letter was not done correctly because the publisher did not understand it right. So when you see the God of forces, you're not talking about the one true God. You're talking about another God, but it probably should not.
Get itself whooped anyway, but it's all a little bit confusing. I mean, the Catholics, they have 14 chapters in Daniel in the book that I was looking at the other day, and this one only goes up to 12. I've had problems with a Jehovah's Witness friend of mine only because she doesn't understand the misinterpretation of Jehovah versus Yahweh, and so.
Well, okay, Whitney, I did notice while I'm looking here in chapter number 11, verse 38, that you pointed out, it says that he will stand up, he will honor the God of forces. That's a capital G. And then it says, and a God whom the fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver. That's the little g. So I just think it's a publisher's preference there. I don't think that that's part of the divine writ. Well, folks, sorry for all of you that are yet waiting on the screen. It's been a big day today. So God bless you all. We'll be right back here tomorrow. God bless you. Give us a call.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.